This is Shizui, just another maid introduced in season 2 of the Apothecary Diaries. At first, she didn't seem like she'd matter much, just someone who popped up now and then, smiling, tagging along with Mao Mao and Shaolan. She seemed bright, cheerful, and full of naive curiosity. But the person she appeared to be was just the surface, and what lay underneath was something else entirely. Not just a maid with a quirky smile, but something darker. And in the end, something far more tragic. This video contains spoilers from season 2 of the Apothecary Diaries, so if you haven't caught up, come back to this one later. Thank you. When Shizui first appears in the Apothecary Diaries, there is no spotlight, no dramatic entrance. She just shows up. One moment she's chasing a cat through the palace, the next she's sitting with Mao Mao and Shaolan, sipping tea, talking about moths. Another new maid in a place full of them, seemingly nothing special or strange at first glance. But if you pay attention, something always feels just a little off. She's bright, friendly, even a little spacey, but it's the kind of brightness that doesn't feel lived in. Like someone performing a version of what they think a cheerful person should be. She copies the way other maids speak, latches onto their habits, their tone. She watches Mao Mao, asks her questions, tries to follow her lead. And the more time you spend with her, the clearer it becomes. She's trying to learn to be normal, not as a personality, as a role. There is a moment in the opening that says it all. You see Shizui twirling beside Shaolan, imitating her movements, but slightly delayed, slightly exaggerated. She's trying to be like them, trying to pass, because deep down, she doesn't really know what it means to be just a girl in the palace. She only knows how to pretend. And yet, that awkward charm works. She bonds with Mao Mao over insects, buzzing, crawling, squirming, things that most people avoid. To them, it's a joy, a shared obsession, a quiet, surprising friendship. She even becomes part of the bathhouse crew, having Shaolan and Mao Mao make connections, guide nervous consorts, laugh through awkward moments. She's still a little strange, a little too polished, a little too rehearsed, but she's there, part of something, until she's not. Because when Shizui is kidnapped alongside Mao Mao and taken out of the palace, something starts to break. Not her composure, Shizui never loses that, but the cracks begin to show in how calmly she handles danger, in how much she knows that a maid shouldn't, in how quickly Mao Mao realizes this isn't just a clever girl with a quirky obsession. She's not who she says she is, and that's where the story truly turns. The smiling maid everyone knew was the closest Shizui ever got to being real, but she was hiding a deeper secret. The identity she was forced to wear like a costume. Her given role was Lolan, the daughter of a high-ranking noble, raised inside the cold, pristine walls of the Shi clan. Her father held influence, her bloodline held status, but her life belonged to someone else entirely. Her mother Shenmei. A woman consumed by control, by image, by the idea of molding her daughter into a flawless mirror of ambition. From the beginning, Shizui wasn't treated like a child. Instead of being treated like a person with wants or feelings, she was simply handled, posed, and corrected. She learned quickly that praise came not from speaking her mind, but from staying silent, and that she would be rewarded for obeying rather than thinking for herself. Her beauty was sharpened into a weapon, her expression softened into politeness, and every trace of individuality scrubbed clean until all that remained was a mask. In truth, she wasn't raised in the way you raise a child. She was sculpted like a piece of art meant only for display. She wasn't allowed to be a girl, so she became a doll. That's why she speaks so little in public. That's why her presence as a consort is so ghost-like, so hard to pin down. Even when she took her place in the palace, she didn't live in it, she disappeared into it. Rarely seen, barely heard. Her staff was massive, her makeup constantly changing. She cycled out her appearance with such precision that people couldn't even recognize her, let alone question her. The image was all that mattered. And somewhere along the way, even she lost sight of where the performance ended and the person began. That's what makes her time as Shizui so heartbreaking in hindsight. Because all those awkward jokes, those moments of fumbling charm, they weren't part of some elaborate act. Instead, those moments were real and truly belonged to her. The small, fragile pieces of a personality that was finally breaking through after being suppressed for so long. Not because she didn't have one, but because no one ever gave her the space to figure it out. And what makes it worse, what gives this story its weight, is that Shizui wasn't just acting. she was rebuilding. She was trying, piece by piece, to rebuild herself into someone human by stepping outside the role she'd been crushed into, and learning for the first time what it truly means to laugh, to fumble, and to make her own choices. She tried copying other maids because she didn't know how else to act. She mimicked Shaolan's energy, Mao Mao's bluntness, even the language of servants, because her entire life she'd been taught that being herself was dangerous. The emotions were flaws, that softness was weakness, that to exist was to serve a purpose, and hers was to look perfect, act obedient, and remain hollow. Even her moments of brilliance, the quiet wit, the calm in a crisis, were learned in silence, observed from corners, refined without encouragement. She was clever, she was capable, but no one ever called her that, because a doll doesn't need praise, it only needs to function. And underneath all of this, there is one thread that ties her together, her sister, Suirei. She was born to a different mother and treated like a stain on the family's honor. A person to be abused, hidden away, and effectively erased from their history. And Shizui, too young, too powerless, was forced to watch. To pretend she didn't see it, to feign ignorance for survival. But she never forgot. It's Suirei who teaches her herbal medicine. It's Suirei she tries to protect, even years later. And it's Suirei who reminds her of what it looks like to live without a mask. That's why, when she's kidnapped, she doesn't panic. That's why she helps Mao Mao stay calm. That's why she knows things no maid should know. Because as Mao Mao realizes she isn't just a maid, she is secretly a consort, and ultimately a pawn in a much larger game, a girl sculpted into silence and now trying to claw her way back to herself. Not with rebellion, but with small human moments. There is one that stands above all the rest. It happens quietly, almost offhand. After everything, after the abduction, after the truth comes out, after the pieces are finally starting to fit, Mao Mao looks at her and says her name.
Shizui.
Not Lolan, the role she played. Shizui, the person she is. And in that moment, you see something break, or maybe not break, but release. A tightness behind her eyes, a disbelief softening into something close to joy. Because for the first time, someone is looking past the role she was forced to play. They aren't using the name she was forced to wear. They are choosing the name that was truly hers, validating the person she was trying so hard to become. And for a girl who was never allowed to be anything but a doll, that single act, being named, being recognized, feels like everything. That moment with Mao Mao, when she calls her Shizui, not Lolan, is beautiful because of how small, gentle, and quiet it is. A name is spoken, not as a title she had to wear, but as a simple truth. It's the first time Shizui is truly seen, not as the puppet her mother created, or the noble she was pretending to be, but simply as a person. But that moment doesn't fix anything. And that's what makes her story so devastating. Shizui's tragedy isn't a loud one. It lacks a single dramatic turning point, a climatic death, or a spectacular collapse. It's not the kind of heartbreak that announces itself with screaming. It's the kind that settles in your chest, quietly, and lingers. Her tragedy is the loss of a life that was only just beginning. Not a downfall, but a disappearance. Because the girl we knew as Shizui, the maid who collected bugs and drank Yasmin tea and made awkward jokes, wasn't a mask. She was in the process of becoming real, taking slow, careful, and fumbling steps toward building a genuine identity. And the moment she was finally recognized, finally validated, was also the moment she had to vanish. That version of her, the one she built in secret, doesn't get to survive. Because the world around her won't allow it. And what's worse, what I can't stop thinking about, is that it never gave her the chance to begin with. The cheerful maid wasn't a disguise. Lolan was, the consort, the doll, the empty image sculpted to carry a mother's revenge. And you can't talk about that kind of tragedy without talking about the person who made it happen. So let me say this as clearly as I can. I fucking hate Shenmei. It's not just that she's cruel, ambitious, or manipulative in the way many villains are. The reason is deeper and more unsettling than that. It's the kind of hate that grows out of horror. Because Shenmei didn't just hurt people, she broke them, slowly, from the inside out. She didn't raise a daughter, she manufactured a product. She carved up her own child's identity so that it would never interfere with her goals. Her cruelty was so tied to image that she once struck Shizui simply for appearing without her makeup, unable to recognize her own daughter when she wasn't playing the part. She turned her family's home into a theater for revenge and corrupted everyone around her in the process. But with Shizui, it wasn't just cruelty, it was possession. She didn't want a daughter, she wanted a symbol, a tool, something flawless and empty that she could use to reclaim power. Not just from the palace, but from the humiliation she'd carried her whole life. And that's what makes her the most horrifying kind of villain. Not because she wanted control, but because she got it. She erased Shizui's humanity one choice at a time. She silenced her, styled her, praised her only when she was blank. And then, when that blankness was complete, she called it love. It's one thing to create a character who's hurt by the world, it's another to show what happens when someone is shaped by it into something hollow. And what makes Shizui's story hurt so much is that, for a moment, we got to see who she could have been, who she was trying to become, and then we had to watch her give it up. Because the truth is, she never wanted power, she never wanted legacy. She just wanted to live quietly, to laugh about bugs, to talk too much, to be someone who wasn't defined by being useful or beautiful, but simply by being real. And in the end, she couldn't have that. Her tragedy wasn't just that she had to return to being lowland, it's that, for the first time, she didn't want to. And if Shizui was the tragedy hiding in plain sight, Mao Mao is the tragedy that never learned how to stop surviving. If you want to understand her story, click here. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, goodbye.